Messages had been trickling out of the besieged port city of Mariupol last week, some simply with the assurance, "We're alive." Warning: this story contains graphic content that readers may find distressing. For many, the Ukrainian city has now gone dark, leaving friends and relatives to suffer through days of silence. "I call my family in Mariupol, I call my friends in Mariupol, but there is no answer," Svitlana Kalada told the ABC. "Mariupol doesn't exist anymore. It's destroyed totally. This is really so sad. Russian shells have hit residential buildings in Mariupol." Dr. Kalada, a Ukrainian general practitioner living in northwest Victoria, last made contact with her loved ones in Mariupol around March 2nd. That was the day Russian forces moved to encircle the city, trapping the roughly 400,000 people who remained with no access to water, food or medicine. Dr. Kalada said nobody was prepared for this level of escalation. "Roads have become too dangerous to leave, so families with children have been forced to stay and bunker down in improvised shelter," Dr. Kalada said. Worst-case scenario awaits trapped civilians. The Ukrainian military has been defending Mariupol for more than a week. Mariupol has suffered badly since Russia invaded, with more than 2,500 residents being since February 24th, according to Ukrainian presidential advisor Oleksiy Arestovich. The International Committee of the Red Cross on Sunday warned that worst-case scenario is yet to come if aid doesn't reach the city. Bodies of civilians and combatants remain trapped under the rubble or lying in the open where they fell, the ICRC said. Life-changing injuries and chronic, debilitating conditions cannot be treated. The human suffering is simply immense. Loading. Genya is a Ukrainian woman from Mariupol who is currently living in Turkey. Her parents and two grandmothers were still at their apartment in the city's outer suburbs when she last heard from them on March 2nd. "I'm worried, but I believe that they are smart, and they are hiding somewhere," she told the ABC. "The brain can imagine and draw terrible pictures, but I try to believe that they are fine." She said friends had heard from loved ones in the city center last week, after they were able to briefly access a mobile network. Some could only send a quick message saying, "We're alive," while others provided details of the devastation. People said that they got calls from their relatives saying that bodies were laying on the street and dogs had started to eat them, she said. "So I can't imagine what's going on in the city now. It's something horrible." Yulia Crowther hugs her friend Evgenia, who is now uncontactable in Mariupol. Yulia Crowther is from Kiev, but now lives in Brisbane. She was able to reach her friend, who lives in Mariupol, 2 days ago, but she now fears the worst. "I offered for her to come to my house in Australia, but now she is not answering. I don't know why," she said. "Because her family just lost internet and power, or because she is." Calls for urgent humanitarian agreement. The head of the ICRC, Peter Maurer, said that residents of Mariupol have endured a weeks-long, life-and nightmare. ICRC's operational leader in Mariupol, Sasha Volkov, said the sound of warfare was constant. "Buildings are struck, and shrapnel flies everywhere. This is the situation every person in the city faces," Mr. Volkov said. The Geneva-based humanitarian agency has offered to act as a neutral intermediary in negotiations, calling for an immediate agreement on the terms of a ceasefire and routes for safe passage. "We call on all parties involved in the fighting to place humanitarian imperatives first," Mr. Maurer said. A satellite image of Mariupol hospital before the invasion. Nearly 125,000 people have been evacuated via humanitarian corridors from conflict zones in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky said in a video address on Sunday. But unceasing barrages have thwarted repeated attempts to bring aid into Mariupol and evacuate its trapped civilians. Ukrainian authorities have accused Russian forces of shelling evacuation routes. "The key task is Mariupol," Mr. Zelensky said. "The hospital area now." Moscow has continuously denied targeting civilians during the invasion, saying it has been conducting a special military operation, taking aim at military targets. But last week an airstrike on a children's and maternity hospital in Mariupol, at least 3, and wounded 17. Videos have also emerged of tanks emblazoned with the Russian pro-war symbol said firing on residential apartment buildings in the city. M to mute, left and right arrows to seek, up and down arrows for volume. Watch 44 seconds 44's video shows Russian tanks marked Z attacking Mariupol. Will there be a chance to visit my Mariupol again? Ekaterina Barasheva was born in the maternity hospital that was shelled by Russian forces on March 9. The 29-year-old left Mariupol for Belgium 13 years ago, but her family still lives in an apartment just 1 kilometer from the site. My mother was born in that maternity hospital too. My aunt works there, but, luckily, she wasn't there, Ms. Barasheva told the ABC. The explosion was so huge, all the apartments within 1 kilometer had their windows shattered. It was just horrible. Ekaterina Barasheva's family have been forced to melt snow to drink. Ms. Barasheva has lost contact with her family for several days at a time, but was able to reach them briefly yesterday. In past calls, her family has described the grim conditions living with no electricity, heating, food or water. They have been melting snow to drink, shower and clean the toilet, she said. People use furniture from the cafes and restaurants to make some fire outside to keep themselves warm. It was -6, 10 degrees Celsius. You can imagine how cold they are, Ms. Barasheva said. In the apartment, they didn't have any heating, just sitting there in their winter clothes. Ms. Barasheva says her heart is broken, and she doesn't think she will ever have a chance to visit my Mariupol again. My family didn't expect it to be so horrible. They were really scared to leave because everything they have is in the apartment, she said. I don't know what they can do now. It's blocked. They really need to be evacuated as soon as possible.